Okay, apparently we are live.
We are.
Okay. Yes, we are.
We are right now.
Hey, hello everyone.
Yes,
Hello.
everyone.
So
Oh yeah, we are.
where can I see that? Let's see. So can you guys watch it live?
I'm
Yep.
watching live on another
Yeah.
screen, yeah.
Watching
Right
live
now.
now.
So how much delay is there? A couple seconds or
A lot.
a lot?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we spoke in the past is currently being streamed.
It's like a time machine. It's like a really disappointing time machine.
All right. So do you guys see chat live? Is
Yeah.
I
someone-
do, yeah. We won't be spoiling anything, so that's something that a few people have said. So we'll try to avoid any story spoilers today, so no one gets disappointed and has anything spoiled for them.
Yeah, of course, of course.
It's like a time machine. It's like a really disappointing
Can they hear
time
us
machine.
right though? Is the sound working?
Okay, I will have to make sure that I will not watch the live stream in parallel.
It's too confusing.
Yeah.
Anyone who's watching now, can you tell us if the levels are good, if the volume's good, and you can hear us okay?
Yeah, that would be good to know. Thomas,
So-
can you maybe organize looking at the chat, because I can't really.
I can, yeah. Someone makes a very good point to start with. So if everyone's listening to us now, then the first thing that someone asks, very good point, can we all introduce ourselves? So that's a good idea, right?
Yeah, that's what we want to do anyway. So at first I want to tell you what the stream will be about before we introduce ourselves. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the game development, how it went over the last almost 3 years now, and so that will take like maybe half an hour. We will talk about the visuals, the sound, the level design challenges, programming, funding, and everything that's involved, writing. And after that, we want to talk about the future of the game, which means what do we have in mind, what changes do we want to implement, and maybe even talk about a potential DLC. So yeah, I'm Marco. I'm like head of studio at Iron Lands. I've started this game 3 years ago almost, and like afterwards trying to find a team to make it a reality. Now
So shall I go?
Yeah, you can go on next.
So my name's Tom Welsh. I'm based in Glasgow, and I'm the lead writer at Iron Lands. So I wrote the story for Cloudpunk.
Okay.
You go, Roman.
All right. Yeah. Hello. My name is Roman Agapov, and I'm the lead level designer in the game. And I've joined the game development around June last year, and I've also done additional programming, mainly tools, and some general programming for the game.
So yeah, I'm Laz. So I'm Eloise, and I was invited by Marco to do the 3D assets and some of the graphic images, and also a bit of level design, but like low key.
Don't be humble. It was great. She did a lot of the area around Ochuba, and we call it level 1. Maybe we will fly there. So I thought we make it take a little trip while we talk, and yeah, let's cover some of the things that we see on screen.
Marco, we have one message from chat just saying, could the game audio come down just a very small amount?
Okay.
So I think the levels are close, but just a little loud on the game audio.
I was worried about that. So it's already at just 15%. So let's bring it down to 10 maybe, like that. Let's see. All right. So, where should we start? So at the very beginning, 3 years ago, this game was supposed to look very, very different. It didn't have any free flight. So what I'm doing now, no. There were fixed roads where the cars would go on like fixed splines and paths, and you couldn't really use them much. And the detail was much lower than what we have now, and this is mainly thanks to Eloise and the other voxel artists who spend so much time on creating all these assets. And then Roman and the other level designers who combined it and made like these wonderful little areas that you can explore. So, and then later on, so how did it all start? Yeah, and of course, I mean, for game development, the first thing to look out for is always like, okay, how can we produce this? Where do we get the money? This was the most difficult phase after my last game that didn't make so much money, and so it was a challenge finding funding at the beginning. It took almost 2 years to find a full production budget for it from various sources, but then the production really went ahead at light speed. Thomas, when did you join?
Oh, good question. I remember, so the year after I got married on my honeymoon, which is just over 2 years ago now, I went to Japan for a holiday.
Right.
And I remember I was writing ideas for the story. We were chatting a lot then. It was very early. So maybe 2.5 years ago, something like that.
So what were your first thoughts when you joined the project?
It's a dream project for a writer. You know, if someone comes to you, and I guess you didn't come to me, I came to you. But
right.
You know, yeah, someone comes to you and they say they have a cool game world, you know, an engine, and you had flight, and the hovers, the flying cars already felt really good. And you knew that you didn't want to have combat as a focus in the game. I think you tried it and it didn't work so well, right?
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Yeah, I had actually a prototype at the very beginning with combat in it, but it was very simplistic, even with like ragdolls and stuff. But it just didn't feel right with this game and with the visuals and like everything. I didn't really want to make a game where you have no time to look at the environment like we have now. We have actually time to breathe in all the atmosphere, and the world and the characters make much more sense this way. So it might not have like a very, very challenging gameplay in a way that it doesn't have any that you can die. No chance of dying and stuff, but I really wanted to make a more relaxing game which focuses on the story and the atmosphere.
And whenever I looked at that, I've never even tried the version with combat, which is kind of funny to think about now, because it's such a kind of story-based game and it's about, you know, a normal person, so it's this amazing, fantastic world. And that was a cool thing for me as a writer, to come along and have a world that was, you know, it wasn't as beautiful as it is now, but the building blocks were in place to create that world. So just to have someone say, I need to fill this world with interesting stories and characters, and, you know, how did this city come to be, what's the background for the city. These are what someone who's into writing would call lots of little narrative hooks, so little hooks that you hang story ideas on. So it's almost like everything's ready for me just to give you lots of ideas. Yeah.
They're currently seeing now the Falconer. The Falconer
yes.
sub-story where you bring back... So it's not really a spoiler, I would say. But maybe... What were the inspiration for that character? Maybe you can talk about that.
I think a lot of people play the game and they pick out the references that they know. So lots of people that like this game would probably jump to Blade Runner, because, you know, the cars, the hovers look like the spinners from Blade Runner. The story has androids, and this game kind of aesthetic in some ways. So this is definitely, I think, maybe the only kind of direct reference to Blade Runner, and maybe more so the original book, The Android's Dream, which has this idea of artificial animals is very important. It's seen as like a status symbol in society. You have an artificial animal, or even better, you have a real animal. It's so rare. So with the Falconer, I was trying to think of an interesting way to do this with a kind of bit of humour, and it was this strange situation where Rania, as an outsider, once again maybe has a bit more knowledge about the outside world than the people in the city, who think she's kind of silly and doesn't understand how things are. But Rania's seen a real falcon, but this Falconer character, he thinks a falcon is not real. He thinks a falcon's like a phoenix or a dragon, it's a make-believe creature. So I guess that's the cool thing about the city. All the folklore and mythology and the facts and stuff are kind of mixed up. No one's really sure what's real, because this is, Nivalis is a strange place, and it's been here for a very, very long time. It looks futuristic and wonderful, but it's layers of technology built on top of each other for thousands of years. So all the information that people have is kind of wrong.
So while we are in this area here by the casino, it was a particular challenging area managing the camera angles. We can maybe talk about this because it's a topic that the community cares about, and why we chose that. So in voxel art, you have to imagine the beginning of the project. This detail that you see now, it didn't exist. It was very, very simple. We didn't even have these metal walkways here. It was all very blocky. It did have more detail than Minecraft, but nearly not as much as you see right here. So, and the reason for that is, if you pull out the camera a little bit and let the character see, and let you see the character from, like, I don't know, 20-50 meters different distance, and then you have like you can frame this window, and you have a much more interesting visual, and you can basically decide what the viewer sees. But now we have so much more detail, and we can actually look for options to open that up, which we speak about in the second half. So, but maybe Roman, do you want to talk about this area a little bit?
Sure.
It's the fulcrum sector. It's quite a complex area with multiple levels. And how do you go about designing those?
Yeah, so we'll just refer to this as the ground level. So this was the first area in the game that I got to work on, and at that time I was not really sure what to expect, like what am I supposed to do with the levels. So I kind of started very simple, created a few very basic walkable sections, I'll call them, like the one with the Alexa Theater and another flat one nearby. And and after that I got a hang of how to create these environments and how they're supposed to feel, and I started adding complexity to the other walkable areas, like this one where the casino was, and I got really into like layering levels with adding multiple like height differences where the player can walk, like adding lifts and adding tunnels to bring you up and down. That adds interesting complexity to the levels, as well as just makes them nice to explore. And this general area, the ground level, it was kind of supposed to be very narrow and dense with all the pollution and the steam and gases in the water. Like, it was supposed to feel cramped, like you're at the very bottom of the city. And that was quite a challenge to design, in a sense that we had to make this whole level feel like one big maze. And originally this was one big level, like the 3 ground levels, they used to be one big level.
Right.
Yeah, but then we decided to split them at one point because they were too demanding on performance, I believe.
They were getting huge. I mean, imagine all these together in one scene. The load times would go through the roof, and performance is also almost... It's like always an issue. But why is performance an issue? Let me tell you why. An object like what you see here, that's the Alexa Theater, it has so many voxels, that it creates a very, very complex mesh. I mean, we import the voxels into the engine, but we don't have the voxels in the engine. It becomes a mesh. It becomes an optimized mesh, but that is still very, very large, and it has a ton of vertices which are demanding to render if you have lots of objects like here. And this particular object, the Alexa Theater, was done by Eloise, and I think it's one of your favorite, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of my favorites because I'm a lover of urbex and old places, like rundown places. I enjoy that ambience a lot, so I try to recreate that in this model, and I just I don't know, I love that kind of places like that. So yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that one.
Yeah, it also has a lot of references to maybe a little bit Art Deco, would you say?
Yeah.
Like with these, this is like amazing to do in voxel art. What you did here in the back wall with all this patterns and stuff.
I tried to put attention to details, and this building was a bit hard to do because it's so huge, you know, that in Magica Voxel I had to cut it in 4 different workspaces and work on each of these workspaces one at a time. So it's
it's
a
actually
challenge.
It's 4 pieces, right?
Yeah.
It's 4 different Magicas. So in Magica you have like different boxes and you combine them into one scene, and so there are actually 4 meshes here. And the more meshes you render, the more draw codes you have in the engine, it becomes expensive. And then another big factor, but a very important factor, is like the characters that you can see walking here. It's so important to bring life into the city and to make it a believable place to explore. But this is like, it's like almost like 100 NPCs here who are walking, who are following their paths. They don't do like a whole lot, but they're still not cheap to do. So we have to do a lot of culling and see which characters are actually visible and which are not. Then we have the trains. The trains were originally planned to have a little bit more use, like you can actually board the train and then move some places, but it became very difficult, but maybe we might pick this up at a later point. Okay, so maybe we should now go to the level 1, to the... Like, the city is very vertical, we already covered it. It's like a huge old city which has grown like for thousands of years, and now the ground level is covered in big structural buildings which support the entire city. Where do I have to go? Let's see.
One thing that I wanted to ask, if I can, if that's okay,
Sure.
is I think I was saying before, Eloise, I don't understand art, but I don't understand your workflow, how you created like the Alexa Theatre or any of the buildings. So like, how do you start? Do you have an idea in your head and you sketch it, or do you just start?
The way I go about it is first I listen to what Marco says about the asset. So he puts a commission something, and then I make sure I understand what are the key points of the asset we are talking about. And when I'm sure that I understand what I'm going to do, then I go reference hunting. So that's my second point of interest. I go look for images on, a Google image or Pinterest, for instance, and I make a little board on the site. I have 2 screens here on my setup. So I have one screen where I put all my references and the other one where I work. And once I have all my images on the site, then I jump right into Magica Voxel, basically. And I just throw basic shapes in Magica, and then it's like clay. I just go in details, and the more details I add, the more detailed it gets. I don't know. And then when I get that product that is for me on almost finished level, I go back to Marco, and it's like a ping pong game. He says, okay, that's all right, or he gives a suggestion, and I work on it until
Yeah,
completely.
while we talk about that, I'm currently looking at the Blue Chewy I was going to say jacuzzi bar. No, the Blue Chewy Jazz Bar, which is a place in the story which we shall not mention. But we can talk about like the challenges in that. It's actually one of the most complex ones. I think it consists of, I don't know, over 20 pieces, Eloise.
It was really hard to do. Yeah, it's I don't know how many pieces again, but in Magica Voxel I had to cut it in so many different workplaces. It was nightmare.
Yeah. So complex pieces like this we try to avoid. Most buildings are made of 3 or 4 pieces, like this one which I'm looking at right now. One of the Asian types. The Chinese, Japanese influenced buildings. And yeah, this one is, yeah, but sometimes you need like this special occasions for, yeah, it just makes sense,
Yeah.
right, to put more detail into this from
Yeah,
time to time.
that's also a lot of the workload I have is because we have chosen to use a very detailed style, even though we make voxels, and so it takes enormous amount of time to really go into that detail and get something that is equal in details with everything else in the scene. That's another challenge of making voxel art
Yeah.
for this game, at least.
But I would still say, I mean, I found out about Magica Voxel like a couple months when I started prototyping. At first it looked different. It was like more like a low poly style, but then this just fascinated me so much, like what you can do, and it has a certain unique aspect of, you know, this voxel art. It can bring, it's very stylized, but it's also at some point it can become very realistic almost.
It's like 3D pixel art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when seen from the distance, especially, this is very, very interesting. You cannot even recognize it anymore. When you get close, like here, you will obviously see it, but yeah, it looks like 3D pixel art.
Yep.
And
I think some
Yeah.
of the people in the chat are saying, Marco, that they really appreciate how you're not flying very well, so they don't feel bad about their driving.
yeah, I'm a little bit distracted.
You're doing two things at once. It's tricky.
Yeah. So I'm just mainly I'm not having we haven't choreographed this, so I'm just flying around like I don't know what's going on. You know, what is the city about? So maybe maybe we can talk a little bit about how this story developed, Thomas.
So for the story as a whole, or I guess I don't want to spoil anything, so I won't talk about anything that happens in this particular location. But we knew from an early point that we wanted to explore the world in a way that there was a good excuse for someone to travel all over the city. So at one time we did think about a cab driver, didn't we? Like maybe
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but there was a few games that had the same idea that were maybe a little bit further on in development than us. So we thought about, well, what would be kind of a relevant thing to the world that we live just now, but would still be an interesting thing in the future. You know, so there's lots of people working very hard delivering things in the world right now, especially with the situation we're in. But also, you know, a delivery driver travels all over the city. They meet all sorts of interesting people. And what if, you know, this was a kind of not exactly legal delivery driver? I wouldn't say that Cloudpunk is like outlawed or illegal, but they just exist in a kind of grey area. And in much the same way as laws in Nivalis are a bit fuzzy, right? It's not kind of black and white. There's a lot of things that you can get away with if you can bribe CorpSec, this world's police. So we like this idea of just traveling all over as a delivery driver and having a very normal life instead of the life of a bionic bounty hunter, private detective with a gun or something.
Exactly. It was really the plan to have like more like the normal person and not a hero's journey. This is explored so much in games, the hero's journey, that it becomes a little bit boring. I mean, boring is very subjective, of course, but this is very refreshing take, I would say, on what you can be in the game.
Yeah, and Rania, the main character, she comes to this city as an outsider, and that mirrors the experience the player has. You know, when you start the game, the thing that people love about it, other than the city and how it looks to start with, is just the feeling of being immersed in a whole other world. You know, and this is how Rania feels too. She's just come. She's an immigrant. She's trying to find her feet, find a job, get by, not crash too much, not get in trouble with the police. So she has the same experience of exploring this world as the player, and I think that brings them into the story very well. I think. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was not. I was just filling the gap.
So I think I was looking at the chat, and it's really gratifying for me to see that you can create a story that people connect with and love, that's about a normal person. There's always a pull as a writer to write about saving the world, you know, to write about an ultimate evil monster that's going to destroy the galaxy, and it can only be stopped by a hero and his 5 hero friends.
Exactly.
Chosen one.
Yeah. So it's great that people have connected and find this kind of this story does have drama and danger and kind of stakes. You know, like Rania could be in serious trouble if you slip off the grid in Nivalis, so to speak. As Lomo says, you're in a lot of trouble. You know, you get fired. There's no way back for you. So the stakes are very real for her. But on the other hand, the stakes aren't, you know, fighting a robot army or something like that. They're just about her trying to make it through the night. People seem to find that kind of, by shades, kind of relaxing, but then engaging, you know. So the pace of the story was very much, when we were working on it together, I would show Marco some scenarios, some missions, and we would think about how maybe this one's a bit more kind of quirky and funny and brings the story back to real life and back to the ground, and then maybe just when the player gets familiar and they think they know what's going to happen next, there's a big twist, and we can't give away any of them in this because we don't want to spoil anything, but you'll have to try to see how the story kind of subverts your expectations and changes pace so that you're kind of kept engaged in it as you go.
Yeah, we basically wanted to let you explore a world where you meet various different characters who tell you more about the world, who tell you more about their feelings, which then transport over to you. Like, you have these feelings now, you get into the roles of these characters and try to imagine what it is like living in this city. And we definitely want to expand on that. In the future we have lots more ideas, and we know that the city is huge, as you can see right now. I'm still not in Midtown yet, because I flew in strange ways, in strange loops. But also because it's huge. And for example, one area in we call it level 4. It's I cannot spoil this stuff.
Nope.
I have a very good question that I don't know the answer to, if it's okay to ask. So someone in chat has asked, so the external view from your apartment, from Rania's apartment, when she goes to stand in the balcony, does that exist in the game world too?
Which one? The apartment?
Yeah, so the balcony view, so you can go outside in the balcony when you're in the apartment. Can you see that balcony from outside?
No, that is a separate scene. We had to do this for various aspects of performance, mostly because it's an internal level, and it's most of what we do on the level design and coding challenge is like managing performance. It is really that heavy of a game because of so much activity, all these flying cars. It should be all a little bit better now, but it's still demanding quite a bit on the GPU and on the CPU also. So Roman, I'm now at, what is this here?
That's the Mochi district. That's level 4, right? That's
Central
the highest.
Central Milo district. So these names are we added at the very end. So you're probably not familiar. He is probably remembering it as Boardwalk A, B, C, D, E, F, G or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's how I named them internally.
Yeah, and I never knew what they were. Hey, he would say like, okay, it's Boardwalk F, level 0 left, or something like that, and I was like, where is that? And yeah.
Marco,
Yeah.
there is a question that's, sorry to interrupt, there's
Okay.
just a question that had come up from a great many people just asking about the release date for the console version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, let
just
me talk
lots of
about
people
this. Yeah, so like in late last year, when actually we were funded already, I was approached by Merge Games. I was currently in Italy. Oh man, those times. We were having a little bit of a deserved vacation, and I was having a call with them while on the beach. And this was
Yes.
really nice. So we talked about retail editions or stuff like that, and what they do and what we could do in terms of what they could take over. And we decided, okay, this sounds very interesting. Let's let Merge Games do all the console builds. So we can't really say when, but we will soon make an announcement like about all this. It's very challenging to port this game, as you can imagine, from a performance perspective, especially to the Switch. But we have planned to bring this to Xbox, to PS4, and to Switch. And
Yay.
this will be particularly cool on the Switch, of course. If you have like this kind of big city on the small Switch screen, it would probably look great. But yeah, it's also very challenging. It's right now it's not running very fast, but the porting team, which is not us, is doing their best job to make this work. So they will have to limit visibility, they will have to limit some detail, I'm afraid, but it will still look very cool. So when exactly I cannot say, but there will soon be an announcement about this and about something else.
Oh, surprise.
Oh. Okay, so maybe what time is it? Yeah, so we have covered like half an hour. I would say it would be more interesting to maybe talk about the future of the game, what we have in mind with it, how we see the vision of it. Shall we just maybe start with how we want to expand on with the stories and the plots, Thomas?
Yes. So we kind of have been chatting as a team, and I guess nothing at the moment, but we do like the idea of filling a gap with maybe just some stories that we add on to the end of the game. Now, we're not sure exactly where those are going to sit, but we know that there's like tremendous hunger in the community just for more stories, for more people to meet, for some of the characters that people like to come back. I don't think it's a spoiler to say some character names if I don't say anything about them. Is that okay, Marco?
Yeah, sure. Do you already have names?
Well, not so much for new characters, although there is some that are definitely set in my head. But for characters that people love in the game, I'm just looking at the chat again.
That we want to
people,
bring back.
Yeah. So there are characters that people love. Obviously, everyone likes Camus, so that's natural. And a lot of nice comments about the voice acting, which is really appreciated from Rania, from Andrea who did Rania, from Camus, from Huxley, all of those characters. So yeah, whenever we read those messages, that's good. You know, the main cast that people like in the game, that's obviously great. But what's a little bit more interesting for me is hearing about the characters that people just say, I just want to know more about them. So for those characters, it can be like Coffee Guy, because we never learn his name. He's kind of funny. Yeah, hashtag free Coffee Guy.
Yeah, I would like to know what becomes out of Rania and this guy, if they have
Yeah.
a future or not.
Well,
I
I
ship it.
have a very, I have a very clear answer in my head for that. But people will need to play the game and the new missions that we add to find out a bit more about that. We also have like Block 4O, obviously, who were a great set of characters to write. But you know, sometimes you write something so strange or so you write them for you. You think you have hundreds of characters in the game. You really think maybe I'm the only one that's laughing at this. Maybe I'm the only one that finds these guys funny or cool. It's been very gratifying to see people connect with those characters to like Block 4O and want to know a little bit more about them. I don't know. Is there anyone else that jumps out for any of you that you'd like to see come back in the story again and learn
have
more about them? Yeah, go Eloise.
I don't know how you pronounce this, but Teco or Tico.
Oh
the
yeah,
robots.
Oh, Tico, yeah.
I love it.
Let's-
I love his story.
We can't tell too much detail about it.
Yeah, I didn't say the story, but I love the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like,
Teco the sad robot.
oh, yeah, that one. I would like to also see more Lomo, and to just generally know more about the crime city in Nevalis. I think that would be very interesting as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think there's, you know, every city has some element of crime. Every city has some element of finance, of management, of government, of police, of security agencies, of, you know, nightlife, all these different layers. And what we tried to do with the story is go through all these different layers and experience them a little bit. But people do have a really, like, a hunger to find out more. I think Lomo was such a good menacing antagonist that people wanted some kind of showdown with him, maybe, or you know, something like that. Yeah, I won't say too much, but it would be interesting to know more about Lomo. I think, I don't know, do we want to say what we think about doing with characters beyond the new missions that we're thinking about, Marco, or should we leave that?
Yeah,
for
I mean,
just now?
in the long term, it's no secret that we have the plan to release a DLC or some other sequel-like thing. It hasn't been decided yet, like for sure, but this is like the way we want to go. We see there's so much more to explore in the city. It can even be expanded. The city we can show more of the city that we have in mind. Maybe we show other places. So yeah. But what exactly?
And I think
what we had in mind, which we talked earlier, no, that's too early to tell.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
So in general, regarding gameplay, let's do that first. So we thought it would be very good to expand on the simulation type gameplay in Cloudpunk, and by that we mean the whole aspect of driving deliveries, managing your car, having vehicle upgrades. While I'm here near the apartment, I jump in quickly, and we wanted to make some of the apartment items usable, like maybe the music player, the TV, which I could maybe buy. Do I have enough money? The hover model is not really something that I could use.
Use a cheat code, Marco.
What?
Use a cheat code.
Oh, I don't even
What?
use cheat codes. And I'm not running in the editor, it's like...
You're the master of this game.
I was
So,
the
yeah.
one implementing the cheat codes.
Yeah, so maybe the pizza subscription that the pizza can be eaten, and the TV could be used, and we can see actual like mini footage. We thought about this, having the music player play custom tracks, and yeah, in general make this a little bit more detailed. And then that's like the more interesting type. We thought about giving the player the option to have a garage, like their own garage, where they can have multiple vehicles. They can store them there, they can park them there and use them. Yeah, what would they use them for? Maybe ask the chat what would you use the vehicle for?
Yeah.
If you had multiple and you could like adjust them and add kinds of upgrades, visible, sometimes just settings. What would you use it for?
It's incredible how many questions we have in the chat about jazz. People really want to know why jazz is illegal. Jazz based
As well.
jazz, the history of jazz and Navalis based DLC.
Jazz is very complex music, and Corpsec doesn't like complex. They want everything simple.
Exactly.
Everyone should earn money for the city, for them, and yeah, that's their main priority. No, what would you use vehicles for? Are there any answers to that, Thomas?
Multiple hovers for cruising, changing the music tracks in real time.
Mm-hmm.
That's I think it's just kind of filtering through to the chat now. So I'll tell you if anything kind of interesting comes through.
Did someone mention the R word?
What's the R word?
The racing word.
Oh.
Here we go.
we have discussed this internally, and I think we found an interesting way to make this doable, and it would be a very cool concept to use multiple vehicles for. That's something that you can, it's like always something exciting that is around the horizon that you can do, and it would allow you to earn money and to spend your money at the same time, and be just a lot of fun. What would you say about that, team?
I
About
think
racing?
also, with the racing we can also expand some parts of the city and maybe add new areas for the player to race in. So
Especially
definitely.
racing areas, yes. I
Yeah.
like the sound of that.
So I personally really like this idea, and we can definitely add a lot of tweaking to the hovers and a lot more customization. We were also, I don't know, should I mention about the different perspective, like on the camera? Or...
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I already teased it on Twitter.
Yeah, so we've also discussed ability to add different camera angles. So far, we've experimented with third-person camera on foot, and I think Marco will show that later.
I will show that in a bit. Yeah, the experiment. So far, it's nothing more than experiment, really. There are challenges in that. The whole input would change, but I wanted to talk about something else first. One more change that we planned is to revise the entire trading interface. Right now, it's kind of
looks familiar.
It's kind of integrated
some
into the
stems?
dialogue system, which makes it a little bit, you can only have three or four offers, have to open your inventory at the same time. It becomes a little fiddly when you want to sell stuff, so this might need a more complex trading UI. Because the economy and everything in this game is also important in the long term, I would say, for the simulation aspect of the game.
Thanks.
We have some people that kind of
See you
have asked
again.
about that in chat as well.
Right.
But we have some ideas for racing, for different hovers if you want to hear them.
Okay, go ahead.
So people want different handling models for the different hovers. So some that are very fast for getting to deliveries when there are time limits. Some that are kind of better for cruising. Some with fuel, different fuel. We have someone who says maybe a kind of like bulk carrying hover that can do more than one delivery at a time, so you can pick up a few things and then deliver them to different places.
Right, like a transporter?
Yeah. Modifying the hovers, changing colours, other parts. Maybe one day bringing in their own meshes to create hovers, or a system to design their own hovers. So yeah. Or races with other delivery companies, so there's like a kind of contract out to deliver something, and Cloudpunk is racing with someone else to do it first.
Yeah,
I think is cool.
Once we have that feature in, basically the options are limitless. What we can do with it, it's a very cool core gameplay element. So yeah, now about the camera. So yeah, again, we understand that the changes in the camera angles. Let me show you a little bit why that is. Is that a good place to show it? No, it's all straight. Let me find a better place. Yeah, so when you change directions and the camera has to realign, there is a certain transition period which makes a little bit, it takes some getting used to it. After a while, I mean, we as developers, we don't even notice it anymore. For us, it's normal. Okay, this happens. You have to accept that you lose control for 1-2 seconds while the camera realigns, and it can be confusing, especially in the area where the camera turns like 180 degrees. But this was a necessary evil to accept, like to make the framing and to present the world in the way that we wanted it to be presented. But yeah, we found out that we can actually, now with all the detail, it would also be possible to do it in third person. So let me show that we switch over. Maybe someone of you can take over in the meantime.
So we did we did have some more ideas. Someone had asked for Euro Hover Simulator, so Euro Truck Simulator but with hovers.
Euro Truck Simulator is so complex.
I know. Yeah.
And I don't know if it would fit. I really don't want to manage Wait a second.
Someone asked for a kind of handling model in one of the hovers to kind of drift. So almost like a Need for Speed kind of car drifting round corners and swerving, which could be cool.
Okay, let me open the other prototype here.
So one of the nice things, I'm just reading from the messages here, and we've heard a lot of from the Discord community, which is our primary method of communicating with the rest of the community and all the fans of the game, as it has been really good, is people appreciate that we've kind of been responding to them. But that's because a lot of the feedback and the information that we've got has been kind of more positive than I expected. This is the first game that I've worked on. So you think that most people online will be just very angry all the time and shout at you about things that they don't like. and that is part. But there's a lot of people who have just loved the game so much, but maybe just have one or two things that they feel particularly strongly about, or things that they're interested in being changed or improved. And just the message coming through in the chat, we really appreciate that as well. People are saying that they like that we're responding and doing this video, and that we're listening to the feedback. But I think it's because the feedback has been, for us, I think you would agree, Marco, like it's been really positive. A lot of people, they're saying, even if they have a criticism, it normally starts with, the first thing I have to say is I really love the game and I love spending time in this world. And then they'll say, like, could you maybe just add blah.
Yeah, but I would say maybe we should stalk. We should stalk. Yeah. We should talk a little bit about like how we experienced the last 2 weeks, how the last 2 weeks were for us. For me, in particular, the first 2 weeks were really, really painful. I was very anxious because this game means really a lot to me. I've spent a significant amount of time on it. My son was basically as old as this game. He was like born a little before the development started. He's now 3 and a bit, and he's like the most amazing person in the world. And this is it means a lot to me. And seeing bugs and people having problems is very, very difficult for me to handle. So I try to fix them as soon as possible and just try to make the experience. Fix the experience if they have something. So, yeah, how was it for you?
Yeah,
well,
for everyone, I think it's been very stressful because we had to immediately fix the things that people reported. I think we faced a couple game-breaking bugs, so we had to immediately fix them, and it was very stressful for everyone here.
Yeah, these game-breaking bugs were mainly bugs created by bug fixes or by changes that we did. And that it's all very, very you cannot test everything. It's a complex game, and like testing the whole game again, we wouldn't be able to put as many patches out as we did. But yeah, I think now the game is in a very good shape. It's stable, so we can focus on new stuff, which I'm showing right now. Or maybe you, Eloise, wanted to maybe say something?
Yeah, I think
how
it
was it for you?
I think it was especially stressful for maybe you and Roman because since you are programmers, then you have to fix the bugs and that kind of thing. But for me, it was like my first game I worked on, so it was very special, and I was just excited to see how the community will react to it, and it was very supportive. So I appreciate that. And I want to thank you, all people who give the game a chance and played it. Well, I've got the chance now to say it.
So I would like to thank all of you, my entire team, for that. That's like, you are heroes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Marco.
You are my heroes, and you will stay my heroes. Okay, so don't mind the walking speed. This is a little bit... I only have this in the build. It's not happening like this in the editor, so she's a little slow on foot. So yeah, this is how it could look. So we have like linked the direction where you move to the mouse or to the controller right stick, and yeah. So don't mind the moonwalk. Well, let me just walk to this area which I showed in the teaser, and when we do this and we add this, we might have to add collision to all these characters, otherwise it would be a little bit silly walking through them if you're close. We might also work on some of the characters to have more details. We will have to change the size of the names here, for example. They are huge now. Yeah, like the entire screen is filled with this text. But like ultimately this opens up the game and adds quite a new perspective. For me it changes the game completely, so we have to take a close look what it means. So right now, yeah, you can rotate the camera like this, you can go down like here or go up like so. We might also add some scroll wheel action, so you can change the distance to the character. And then when you walk forward together with the mouse, you will decide where to walk. You can also strap like this or like this. Yeah, so it feels a little bit more natural. We have to tweak all that, but as a first test, I would say it's pretty cool.
Yeah, personally, I think it looks beautiful. I love this angle.
I mean, before you would just mainly look at building fronts and like on the floor, which is not super exciting. Now you can see more of the sky, and in Midtown where you have like this crazy violet sky, this would probably look very cool.
It's more immersive, and the building really, you know, because the size of the building is so huge, the city is like built in its height, so you can really feel that with this kind of view, I believe.
So do you guys think the detail is enough to justify this? What do people in chat think?
So yeah, so people are really excited about it. Some people are saying you can really appreciate the scale of the game world from this. And I think it's funny because I do like the fixed camera angles before. Some other people are asking if they would still be able to play from the original camera angles, which a lot of people like too.
Yeah, we could make it switchable, I guess. So that we have by default like either of them, and we could use by the X feature, which unlocks the camera for your car. We could link the same to this one, and yeah, before you could never see the text. Now the text is huge of what these operators are saying. And yeah, but yeah, you can, as you can see here, the whole thing, you appreciate much more how it feels, the different layers and stuff, and you can see the top of the buildings. I
think. Sorry, I was just going to say, for me, I think that the fixed camera angles that we had would serve a different purpose when it comes to the feel for the game. The fixed camera angles let us frame things, right? And they gave the feeling of Rania being very small and the city being very big, so it gave you a broad kind of view of the city as a whole. And this camera perspective kind of embodies you in the city much more, so you feel closer to Rania and closer to the character, which could be good for some parts, and you know, it would be, I think it'll be great once we can switch and give the player the freedom to choose between them.
Oh, where's my sunglasses?
Oh no.
Is there a trader here which buys which sells you stuff?
Might be on the lower.
There is a merchant down there. Let's go down there. Yeah, so this is like another natural thing that comes with it, that you can see your character, you can see the clothes better. I mean, of course, you can now see the voxel nature of the characters much more. Like this guy.
Making characters in Magica Voxel is really hard. Doing buildings and cars and stuff like that are not organic, that's okay, but making characters, my god.
Yeah, like everything organic creates a huge amount of detail.
And
like trees
to
and
find
stuff.
the right balance between human like and not too flat, but I don't know, it was difficult because the detail is for the character is not as high as the other buildings, so to make the details of the face is a bit more tricky.
Okay, let's see, sunglasses.
So one thing that was asked here in the chat as well is about kind of some of the events, the environmental events that play out. You know, like kind of buildings collapsing into the sea and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So would we try and make sure that the player still sees those?
Yeah, exactly. I was just showing them, you know, but they there are some challenges because some of these are made in a way, yeah, that it's like a development secret that you cannot see where they're coming from. So now, when we open up the camera, you would actually be able to see that. We will have to tweak those sequences a little bit. But in general, in this area, we don't have to change all that much to make this work. For me, being here, I could just walk around a little longer and spend much more time on it compared to before. Yeah, that's that. And yeah, so in the long run, we were thinking about adding a DLC which introduces new lead characters. How exactly that would be, whether that would be before or after the original story, we haven't decided yet. There are some ideas floating around in Thomas' head and in our heads.
Yeah.
Which are cool, but yeah.
I think one of the things about, and although we're adding, you know, missions as a series of patches and adding more stories in the world to the base game, when it comes to ideas for DLC, we'd really like to explore quite a different aspect of Nivalis and life in the city. So, you know, we've spent some time as Rania with Camus, but it may be quite different. Like, there's a lot of exciting ideas that we're working on and kind of chatting about just now. We'd like a different style of story for DLC and something that would really surprise the players.
So now I'm playing with the controller. It's similar, it's a bit more tricky to get the movement right, especially the strafing. I have to probably introduce some dead zones here and tweak the speed here a little bit. Yeah. So a lot of work to do on this to make it really cool. Right. So that's basically what we wanted to show in this dev stream. Maybe we can answer a couple questions if there are any.
So one question I'll just say for whoever wants to answer it can. They asked about free roam in the game. So someone's saying until the DLC is ready, is there a way to free roam around in the game world?
Like free roam as in generic missions?
A few people have asked for that as well. I think maybe the person asking the question, I'm not sure if they've played the game or if they've played to the end and they're maybe not aware you can keep doing kind of flying around the city and there's still things to do.
Yeah, you can basically continue after the main storyline. There are a couple of side stories to explore and achievements and places to find and stuff, but the content that we have in the game is limited, so at some point you will reach an ending. There's no never-ending missions. There's no endless amount of missions, I would say. We want to add more of those. We were thinking about generic missions, and this is a tricky topic because all of the missions that we do, they are completely voiced. They come with a side story with characters, and if that wouldn't be the case in generic gameplay, then the game would feel much more different, and I'm not sure it would be the same experience. But we will think about it and consider our options and see what's best. Any other?
Any more questions? Some of these have spoilers, so I'll try and pick out. Someone asked if there could be a story where they play as a detective in Nivalis. So there's lots of ideas that people are giving us as well. People have asked if maybe the scope of the game world would expand, so people want to fly higher in free roam so that they can go into higher areas that don't exist just now. So I guess sometimes you can fly to a building but not fly to the top of it, which is kind of explained in our story why that's the case, but I don't know. Would we free that up?
There are multiple... Yeah, there are a couple of reasons why that is. First, to make it... to give you like an idea of where you can travel in the world, that you don't try to go where there is nothing, where we haven't placed anything. Right, so that means beyond the city walls and stuff like that. And from a story point of view, like each layer in the city has a ceiling and a ground, a floor, and within that you can move. And if you want to go higher places, you have to use these ascenders, which bring you to higher areas. And the spire is locked off anyway. It's just for the rich folks, CEOs.
Yeah.
And
Who knows?
I don't know if sorry, Roman.
Someone asked about the photo mode. We already have a photo mode in the game, well, kind of. You can disable the UI in the game by pressing F3 on the keyboard.
Yeah, you can do that. No, you can't see any UI anyway now, because it's all on the right. Yeah, if I press F3, you basically can make nice screenshots. It's not like a real photo mode where you can unlock the camera and go anywhere. That's not implemented yet, but I think this already gives you a nice option to shoot those screenshots, especially when you fly around.
Yeah, and once we have the new camera implemented, at some point in the future, you will be able to take new screenshots with it. So, it will certainly benefit in the future.
Okay, so any suggestions, ideas for this kind of walking from the community, from the people who just saw it?
So I think maybe some people are worried that this would be the only view, and we would not have the original view. So I think just to make it clear, we would kind of be giving the player more choice. And people like the idea of maybe a kind of mid-view, so something between what we're seeing now, this close to Rania, and the one that's very far off, maybe something in the middle, or like a zoom, we can zoom in and out.
Okay, yeah, zooming, yeah.
Yeah, zooming, sure.
I mean, tricky is always like the camera collisions like that, especially with voxel art, which are very rough. It's not like these are round edges, so you have a lot of stuff like this happening. With other objects which are more organic, you don't have these sharp edges more. So it's, we will have to see.
So someone else suggested that if you could take the trains around Novalis, then when you get to kind of one end in the train station, you could go to a platform to summon your hover, or just have the ability to summon your hover to parking spaces. So yeah.
Yeah, we thought about this at the beginning in the very first prototype, the parking space. You could basically use any parking space to jump into your vehicle. But I thought it was more interesting for exploration to actually go back to your vehicle. So that was the reasoning for it.
Yeah. Well,
All right. If there are no other questions, I think we can wrap up this stream. I would like to thank everyone for watching.
thank you.
It was nice that you took the time
Yeah.
and provided your feedback and so
Yes.
on. So
I think that the forum for people, if they have more questions, we're pointing them towards the Discord server, right? That's the main place.
the Discord,
Good idea.
the suggestion channel, you could do it there, or in the Steam community. You can also always do that, even though we read that less often. The Discord is the better place, maybe.
Can we add a link to the description maybe for practicality?
I can change the description afterwards, so yeah.
Yeah, so people can find it maybe. Okay.
All
well,
right then.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys, and
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
let's do that sometime in the future again.
Yeah.
All right. Bye bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.